welcome back to another video. Well, you guys read the title, so you know this is going to be a hot take video. I'm going to be talking about why I personally think Harry's Venom could have been the best version of the character, or could have been the best version. This video is probably going to get me crucified by the fan base, so wish me luck. Now, let's get this out of the way first. I'm fully aware that Marvel Spider-Man 2 was not the best interpretation of the story of Venom, with plenty of problems. Second is, I'm not hating on Eddie Brock. I am using the comparison of Harry and Eddie throughout this video through multiple interpretations of these two characters. I personally believe that Harry is a better Venom in this context. Last disclaimer is obviously this is all based in my own personal opinion. You can feel free to disagree as long as you're not being a prick in the comments. So with that all out of the way, let's actually get into the video. Osborne, Eddie Brock, and Venom. Three characters that share many similarities, but also only one of them is actually the main host of Venom. And most of the time, I've never really felt like that worked. The only time that Harry has ever received the Venom symbiote in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, but that never really lived up to the full potential of Venom as a character and why he works so well. Me personally, I never really felt like that counted as Harry's take on Venom. Look at Harry as a character in his many renditions, he actually works a lot better as the host of Venom when you actually take the time to think about it. The only problem is that he's never had any stories that really compounded to really show how and why he could work. Let's actually look and compare Eddie Brock to Harry to some extent, and their connections to Peter in most renditions. Harry in most comics and also TV shows is a popular but also rich character, opposite of Peter with a different type of personality. Even though they're very close, they're also equals. Some have Harry being very smart and also an equal to Peter in intelligence. And let's actually look at Eddie Brock, which the only one that actually works when it comes to the origin and just in general in my own personal opinion, because when you look at the comics origin of Venom with Eddie Brock, I personally have a lot of problems with each rendition. At least the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon actually fuses two different central parts of Eddie Brock's origins together and actually gives him a deeper connection to Peter outside of just being a rival character. It's like Harry to some extent, if on the same wavelength as Peter, as equals. Comes to Eddie in most renditions outside of Spectacular, he doesn't really have too much of a deeper connection to Peter outside of job and outside of being betrayed and just hating him. Which kind of makes the point about him being a reverse of Spider-Man not really work. Because at least with Harry, there is a brotherhood, there is a friendship, but also there's a deeper connection where Peter and Harry's destinies are always intertwined. Peter and Spider-Man always will find a way to affect Harry's life to some extent, and at some points always drive him into darkness, whether that will be turning him into like his father, a goblin, or a hobgoblin, but in this case Venom, which actually I feel works a lot better. When you actually look at Harry as a character and you look at him and compare him to Eddie Brock, it would actually make sense for him to become the Venom symbiote's host. When you look at a character like Harry and actually compare him to Eddie Brock, yes, he's a lot richer, yes, he has a lot of things, but he also shares a lot of similarities, and he always falls because of the choices of Spider-Man or Peter in most renditions of the character. Turns the love and the friendship of these two central characters that are equals into a rivalry that actually leads into just unwielding hatred for one another. And it does make sense when you actually look at how Harry is portrayed in the movies and look at the origins and how Peter's actions always affect him. Get the Sam Raimi films for just a moment. Honestly, it would make sense for Harry to become Venom in that moment in Spider-Man 3 compared to Eddie Brock. Peter's actions in Amazing Spider-Man 2 affect Harry and leads him into turning into Green Goblin because of Peter's actions and choices. Peter's actions always seem to affect Harry in the worst ways possible. It would actually make sense to some regard, not just because of Marvel Spider-Man 2's story, actually look at the creation of Venom as a character and what he represents to the character of Spider-Man. When it comes to his rogues gallery, three crucial villains not only are the most recognizable, but also are the most dangerous, and that's why Insomniac has chosen to actually have Peter face them later in his career versus earlier, but also what they represent to the character of Spider-Man, reverse of him as a character. What are the core three villains that come to mind unlike Batman? Otto Octavius, Dr. Octopus, Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, and Venom. Not only are they the most dangerous villains in Spider-Man's mythos, but also they are the core aspect of a reverse of him as a a character. Don't believe me? Look at what they represent to Spider-Man. Dr. Octopus represents intelligence. Instead of representing Spider-Man to some aspects, he actually represents the idea of Peter Parker. That's why in Marvel Spider-Man 1, there is a parallel between these two characters and what they represent to one another. They both actually try to use their intelligence to help people, and their philosophies actually align to some extent when it comes to intelligence. But Otto's philosophy differs because of how Otto views himself as superior to others, and he views everyone else beneath him because of his intelligence. When he finally gets power, unlike Peter, he doesn't use it to help, he does it to hurt and get even. Then look at a character like Norman Osborn, aka Green Goblin, which represents the idea of identity. To quote Green Goblin from Spectacular Spider-Man,
"We
all wear masks, Spider-Man.
But which one is real?
The one that hides your face, or the one that is your face?" Like Spider-Man, Norman hides behind a mask, but his mask is intertwined with him. The Green Goblin persona presents more to Spider-Man and how he operates as a character. That is the brilliance of that quote when you really think about it, because it represents the idea of which is really the mask, your human self or your hero self. Norman is consumed by the idea of the Green Goblin, drives him into madness, making it almost a split persona of him. Spider-Man operates in a similar facet, and that's what makes the parallels between these characters interesting. Unlike Doc Ock, who represents Peter Parker's intelligence, Green Goblin represents the idea of identity, not just of Peter Parker, but as Spider-Man as well. Norman, in some regards, actually does represent the more selfish side of Peter, because he does have intelligence and he's very wealthy, but he uses that wealth and his influence to his own ends. And as his other persona, he destroys, he hurts, he doesn't help. As for Venom, Venom has had many interpretations, but what does he actually represent to the character of Spider-Man? Doc Ock is a representation of Peter's intelligence, Green Goblin is a representation of identity and duality, Venom is a character that is a reverse of Peter's morals and heart. When you really think about it, that is why he's a black and white. But it's Spider-Man, he is not one with color, he's one with darkness, one with hardly any light to him, and that kind of shows in Venom's actions in the way that he attacks Peter and Spider-Man. Like Green Goblin, who is two separate identities with Norman and Goblin, you do have two separate people that are a part of this suit. They are bonded through mutual hatred. Peter's actions when he had the suit where he was corrupted by power affected Eddie Brock and got him fired. With Harry on an emotional level, it's a different case compared to Eddie Brock, because not only as a person does Harry represent the opposite of Peter, but also when you think about how Peter is corrupted and how that affects Harry, he's willingly letting his friend die. It's a lot more darker and a lot more tragic when you really think about it, because Peter's darkest instincts, his darkest emotions, his rage, is what embodies the idea of Venom. That's why he's a lot more monstrous. Let's actually look at the scene that leads up to the creation of Venom in the game.
Finally got it off. My hero.
Harry, we've got to destroy it. It's too dangerous. I don't want you to lose yourself like I did.
Pete, please.
You don't understand. Connor said it was... I saved your life! You won't save mine? Do you want me to die?
Comparing this scene to most renditions of the creation of Venom, there is a high contrast with Peter and Harry's dynamic here. Peter comes in to destroy it, and when he sees Harry, there's a glimmer of fear. Harry, at this point, there's a glimmer of sarcasm. He says, you know, you finally got it off, my hero. Peter in this moment looks scared of what he has to tell his friend. You know, see it in his face, his body language. When he says he has to destroy it, he means it. Notice Harry at this point, his sarcasm fades. Look at his facial reaction when Peter says he has to destroy it. It's fear, but there's also silent rage, and he also tries to explain it. But then the next sentence from Harry isn't sarcasm. The only thing he can muster is a please, as he tries to explain to his friend, but then there's rage. Saved your life, and you won't save mine. Do you want me to die? That one key moment between both characters there. Peter's reaction in that moment, the way he looks at Harry, fear and also shame. And as that happens, the symbiote reacts to the rage in the room because of Harry and that anger, resentment, and he smiles at it as it breaks and comes towards him on an equal moment, and he welcomes it. Like certain comic representations or sometimes the shows, at that moment they're bonded by darkness, anger, rage, vitriol, and that's why they become something more monstrous instead of what they had before. Harry and Venom work so much better in this moment because they are equal amounts of representation of Peter and Spider-Man's consequences. Both are rejected by the character, but also in some aspects, this moment they are truly representing the idea of what Venom represents as a character. Not only is he a consequence of actions, but also his emotions. He also is a living embodiment of that anger, all that rage in both characters, and that's why their bond works so well. That's why Harry and Peter stand opposite to one another, the darkness and the light. Harry's Venom works in some aspects because Harry actually had the symbiote first. He never became this monstrous. Only after Peter, only after all this resentment forms, that's when he actually becomes the physical opposite of Spider-Man. And I personally believe that he represents the idea of betrayal. While in the first game, Otto represents the idea of a father figure to Peter, and that betrayal leaves a everlasting scar. Peter as a character kind of becomes a little bit like Otto in this game and actually betrays Harry, kind of leaving Harry in a similar predicament as Peter from the first game. Why this works so well is basically because it's reversing the roles of what happened in the previous game, and instead of a father figure, it's someone on an equal playing field to you, a brother, a friend. A lot more different than Finn from the previous Miles Morales game. You basically are betraying Miles, Harry, and MJ. You're basically becoming exactly like Martin Lee and also Dr. Octopus. Basically putting people in the same predicament you were in the first game, and that's what I like about this because Harry works so well with this in mind. Then look at what Harry does after he becomes the symbiote. His goals and morals are reversed. Everything that he wanted to achieve, he does in a twisted sort of way, healing the world through a darker means. Even doing something that Peter said he wanted to do but couldn't actually do, and that is kill Kraven. Though Peter has become a lot more angry, a lot more wrathful, he's never actually killed with the symbiote. Harry does in this moment, which shows a dichotomy between the characters where Harry has no problems hurting people, killing people with this symbiote. He at the same point kind of did as well, but you kind of see a bit of a contrast on why they kill. Most of the time when you actually have Peter and Venom going against one another, Harry is not fighting to kill Peter, actually trying to get him to join him to some extent, still aligning with the brotherhood between these two characters, healing to Peter in that sense with the goal of what he has is healing the world, but in a different sort of way, presenting exactly a corruption of morals and heart. But if you guys disagree, let me know in the comments down below, or if you do agree, let me know some of your thoughts and other various things. I'm probably gonna get a lot of opinions or maybe a couple react videos for this video, but it always seems to happen with a hot take, but hey, who knows. You guys did enjoy my rambling thoughts on this subject. Sure to like the video if you did, and if you didn't, it's perfectly fine. You can change it to a dislike. If you are new to this channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification button to be notified whether I upload, whether it's Spider-Man, Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, or any other content under the sun like Darksiders, and it does help out the channel and me with the bloodlust that is the YouTube algorithm. And also, good rest of your guys' and gals' night, morning, afternoon, whatever it is for you in the world. Peace out. Bye-bye.